Hello, friends. Welcome back to Mom Maintenance. This is episode 20, Haircuts, Cats, and Tattoos. I don't know about you, but I have spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to make decisions. Should I volunteer? Should I homeschool? Should I switch jobs? Should I buy the summer pool membership? Should I sign my kid up for travel soccer? Should I have those people over for dinner? Should I start my own business? Should I quit? Sometimes I'm so indecisive that I don't actually make the decision at all. I just decide I'll think about it tomorrow or next week or when life calms down a little bit, and I put it off. Because honestly, I just don't want to use the mental energy to make one more decision, but then it never actually goes away. Instead, it just sits there in the back of my mind, and I'll think about it again and I think, I still haven't decided. And it quietly drains my energy because even though I haven't made the decision, my brain never stopped carrying it. A little while ago, I heard James Clear explain decision making using something he calls haircuts, cats, and tattoos. I immediately stopped and wrote it down because I loved the idea. His point is that not every decision deserves the same amount of mental energy. Some decisions grow back. Some last for a season. And some stay with you for a very long time. But for some reason, we tend to treat every little decision like it's getting a tattoo. Think about getting a haircut. Should I get bangs? Should I cut it shorter? Should I try a different color? Even if you hate it, it grows back. It's a temporary decision. It's low risk. There really isn't a right haircut or a wrong haircut. There are just haircuts. Some you end up liking more than others. Some you laugh about later. But very few actually change the course of your life. Then there are cats. A cat is more of a commitment. You'll probably have it for years. It's worth putting more thought into. But eventually, that season ends too. And finally, there are tattoos. Those deserve a lot more consideration because they're much harder to change. I think as women, especially as moms, we accidentally turn almost everything into a tattoo. Should we switch schools? Should we move? Should I try a different bedtime routine? Should I stop volunteering? Should I start exercising in the morning? Should I let my kids quit piano? We convince ourselves there is one right decision and one wrong decision. And if we choose wrong, we're going to ruin our children or ruin our future. Or somehow that decision will prove that we are a bad mom. And that's where I think we get stuck because I don't actually think life works that way. So let me give you an example of this. One of the biggest decisions my husband and I have ever made was a couple of years ago, we decided to sell our Crumbl stores. It was a decision I really wrestled with for months. Not because selling didn't make sense. It actually made a lot of sense. When we first opened the stores, we had said, let's do this for 5 years and then we'll reevaluate. But when the time came, I couldn't stop thinking, if we sell now, we're quitting. I had somehow decided that selling meant we had failed, that quitting was wrong. But eventually I started questioning that thought. Because who says every commitment has to last forever? What does it actually even mean to commit to something? We had spent 4 years building those stores. We learned so much. We met incredible people. Our family grew because of that experience. But nothing had gone wrong. We'd simply decided that chapter was complete. It was time to focus on something different. I wanted to be home more. I wanted to pay attention to what was going on with my kids in a way I couldn't when I was fully immersed in Crumbl. Our family needed something different than it had 4 years earlier. And for a long time, I kept asking myself, was selling the right decision? But I don't think that's actually the best question to ask yourself, because sometimes there isn't one objectively right choice. Sometimes there are several really good options. The better question to ask yourself is, can I make this the right decision? Looking back now, selling Crumbl was absolutely the right decision. And it's not because there was some giant sign from heaven telling us to do it. It became the right decision because we decided it was. We stopped looking backward And we stopped wondering what would have happened if we'd kept the stores. Instead, we poured ourselves into the life we'd chosen. I think we spend so much time trying to find certainty before we decide that we forget we have the ability to create certainty after we've decided. Sometimes the decision itself doesn't determine your future nearly as much as your willingness to commit to it once you've made it. I used to think every decision had one perfect answer. That's why I agonized over the decisions I made. If I researched enough, prayed enough, thought about it long enough, eventually I'd know with absolute certainty which choice I should make. But my life hasn't worked that way. Instead, I've found that God usually gives us enough light for the next step, not the next 20, just the next one. And then if things need to change, He helps us adjust. With God's help and with our own ingenuity, our ability to learn, to adapt, and course correct, things always have a way of working out. That's really what life is. It's learning, adjusting, growing. I actually think most of our lives are made up of haircut decisions. You try the exercise class. If you hate it, just stop going. It's not saying anything about you if you stop going. Start the business. If it isn't working, pivot. Try a new morning routine. If your family hates it, change it. Read that book, take that class, join that group, go on the date, experiment. Most things aren't permanent. And here's something else I've realized. Sometimes we spend months trying to predict which choice will make us happiest, when we could have spent those months actually living. Action teaches us things that overthinking never will. You will learn more from trying something for 2 weeks than thinking about it and agonizing over it for 2 years. Of course, there are tattoo decisions in your life you're going to make. Who you marry, major financial commitments, some career decisions. Those deserve careful thought. But I think they're actually fewer than we imagine there are. Most of life is experimenting, learning, growing into the next version of yourself. And there's one more thing I want you to know. Once you've made a decision, stop putting it on trial. Quit collecting evidence that you ruined your life and quit replaying the other option over and over in your mind. Go build the life that decision made possible. So today, if you're agonizing over a decision, ask yourself, is this a haircut? Will this grow back? Can I change course if I need to? Or is it a cat, a commitment for a season? Or is it actually a tattoo? Maybe you'll discover that the thing you've been losing sleep over is really just a haircut. Maybe that's permission to stop trying to predict the future and simply make the best decision you can with what you know today. Because confidence doesn't come from believing you'll always make the perfect decision. Confidence comes from believing that even if you don't, you'll figure it out. You'll learn, you'll adapt, you'll ask for God's help, you'll adjust. That's how all of us grow. Your life isn't built on one perfect choice. It's built on hundreds of imperfect ones, made with courage and refined with wisdom along the way. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Mom Maintenance. If this episode helped take some of the pressure off your shoulders, I'd love it if you'd share it with another mom who's been carrying the weight of trying to make the perfect decision. And if you'd like help learning to trust yourself, quiet the overthinking, and move forward with confidence, I would love to coach you. You can schedule a free consultation at annastice.com. And I will see you next week.